So welcome, Jim Hanink and Shane Hoffman. We're here at the Candidates Roundtable for the American Solidarity Party. And we're recording this for future reference. One of the things I wanted to do was to get you two together, as well as maybe one or two other people, and just kind of talk out what your guest folks are getting into. So I'm going to have you give us 30 seconds each, starting with Shane. Just tell us, what state you're in and what you're hoping to accomplish with right at the moment, and we'll get started that way.
Shane Hoffman. I live just northwest of Columbus, Ohio, which is pretty much smack dab in the middle. What I do in general when I'm not being a politician is I'm a librarian, and I do a lot of volunteer work in food insecurity programming, and I do a lot of volunteer work at my church. As far as what I accomplish here, I have run for office once before. I ran for Congress in 2020, and I apparently have another chance right now because my opponent just announced he's leaving Congress in about a month. So I have an opportunity to do this again this fall if I feel like I can get the support together, gather signatures and all of that. And I'm also trying to gather information to help other ASP candidates hit the ground running, because the biggest hurdle I had last time around was I had no idea what I was doing. I was learning everything as I went. And as we'll find out later, some of those surprises kicked everything into fast forward way, way sooner than I was ready.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And last and certainly not least, Jim, if you could give us your few 30 seconds. This is the first time I've ever gotten to interview you. We've had it on the other side. I've been on the other side of this, so this is a pleasure for me.
My wife and I live in Inglewood, California. Once it was the home of the Lakers, and then it was called the City of Champions. Now we have two NFL football teams, a brand new stadium, and we call ourselves Concussion City. And here in Southern California, which is where Inglewood is, I think the most immediate and obvious, terrible problem is massive homelessness. We have in our county, and the majority of the people are in Los Angeles, we have well over 60,000 homeless people. And if you drive around in what you might call downtown Los Angeles, you have street after street that's just taken over by homeless encampments. So that's the most visible problem. I'm running for governor because it seems crucial to me that we make the American Solidarity Party better known. I think we're beginning to be known, but we need to be much, much better known. And this particular election, Shane mentioned a kind of a special election coming up where he is. This particular election is a recall of Governor Gavin Newsom. And in fact, the matter is, it hasn't been officially proclaimed yet because of petition signature vetting. But it's pretty well agreed on all sides that there will be a recall. And the way the recall works is, well, two parts. Question number one, do you want to recall Gavin Newsom or not? And then question number two, regardless of how you vote on question number one, who would you like to be governor? So conceivably, somebody could say, yes, I want to recall Gavin Newsom, and then on the second part, vote for Gavin Newsom. That's the way we do things. But so even the ballot is structured in a peculiar way. And last time around, when we had a recall, it was Gray Davis, who was not particularly popular and actually lost and was replaced by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that just tells you more about Southern California.
Mhm.
A lot of attention in this current effort has already been given to Caitlyn Jenner. And that tells you even more about California and Southern California. So after the recall, we're scheduled for a 2022 governor's race again. So unless somebody else in the party wants to take a crack at it, I'll do that as well. And this time around, nobody wanted to do it. Many are called, few are chosen. We called many, and they were all frozen. So that was left to yours unruly. Now, so far, what's interesting is I can't run in this race very far. So far, it's been more of a crawl than a run, because step number one is to get a bank account. I know you'll want to make a generous donation, but you can't have a bank account unless you've already done some paperwork. The paperwork has been done, and now it's up there in Sacramento, and it may or may not make it back. And I'm going to wind up with just one last thing about Southern California. Sometimes the mail comes and sometimes it doesn't. And if you want to complain, there's immediate division. Have you missed your mail for 3 days or less, or have you missed it for more than 3 days?
Wow.
That's standard.
Mhm.
So that's more than 30 seconds.
Oh, well, sorry, you can't speak anymore. You've used all of your allotted time. And no, we're not going to be cutting off the microphones, which I wish they had done in last fall's debates, but we won't be doing that here. Which kind of leads me to kind of the icebreaker question. I just wanted to ask both of you, in your experiences so far, whether it's in your own personal life or just kind of to break the ice and say we're how you're doing. You have any amusing stories? Shane, you've been through the cycle once, and James, you've kind of given us. You may have already supplied us with that, but I'll just throw that out there. Anything you would care to share with the audience?
Well, yeah, one thing I learned the hard way, and I alluded to this earlier, the part that really fast forwarded my campaign, because I was thinking, I'll just do a really low key write-in campaign. I'm going to learn a little bit about the mechanics. Well, I learned a whole lot. What happened was the second I filed with the FEC, which I actually wasn't required to do, I just wanted to get through that once. Your name goes out to all the media outlets and anybody who's checking, any special interest group, whatever, who's looking to see who's registered, has access to you. It started coming in almost immediately. Newspapers, television stations, the special interest groups, everybody wanted a piece, and I was absolutely not ready for that. So yeah, if you know the threshold for where you have to officially register with the state, and even by the end of the campaign, I had never come close to that threshold. But yeah, you'll want to have yourself prepared with all your talking points. You'll want to be prepared to be on TV, or at the very least have the right equipment to do a good video interview, because it'll happen just like that, and you'll need to be ready almost immediately when that happens.
Good. James, any thoughts?
Well, I had sort of wondered about this, but with the videos that I've been doing, mostly connecting with people here in the party in Southern California, I became more and more aware of how much I look like a beet. And when I saw Shane Hoffman say that he would help, and then I see him here today, I say, DB, man, DB.
Well,
And I know what you're going to say, improve your lighting. That's the first thing. You're going to say, get out in some regular light, but there are no windows in this room. And this windowless room, I captured from the family in a coup that I doubt if I'll be able to capture the living room.
yeah, well, if you can't get natural light, and I kind of stole this room too. This used to be our dining room. My wife is much handier than I am. We had 2 openings that led in here. She walled one off. It's now a bookshelf, and she put a door on the other one. So I do have some space. And if you don't have access to good natural lighting, they do make special lights that will adjust. Like here, I've got one of those ring lights like they use for makeup.
Uh-huh.
Oh yes, I see it.
And it'll adjust white, yellow. I can make myself look, wow, that's bright.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that helps with you just got to find the right settings for your skin tone, because the first interview I did, I didn't have one of these. Gray. I was gray for the whole thing. It was bad. I looked like I'd been dead for about 8 hours.
my daughter's been doing the machine, teaching math and science to so delightful 7th and 8th graders.
Mm-hmm.
And she has something like that, and she tried it out on this computer, but it didn't fit. But probably what I just need to do is get one that does fit.
Here, I hope nobody gets sick as I do this. Let me show you the setup I have here for, I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
Let me see if, there we go. It's adjusting.
Okay.
Wow.
But that's just a 25-inch arm that'll hold 5 pounds, which is good because that 18-inch ring light weighs about 4 pounds. And the arm cost me about $25. The ring light was a little more expensive. I think I got that one on sale for about $70. But you probably don't need an 18-inch ring light. I've got a little bit of
now where's that place? Where's that place, Shane, in relation to you right now? Is it back of you, in front of you, on the side?
Okay, I put it right behind my laptop, and I have a USB webcam that just rests on top of my laptop between me and the light. You want the light to be in front of you.
Okay. I'll tell you what I've got right now. We're doing nitty gritty, Norm, aren't we?
But we're on topic. Don't worry about it.
This is what I've got right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can get different kinds of bulbs that will work a little bit better for skin tone, but you're probably better off, if you can, getting a ring light that has adjustable white and yellow.
All right, I'm writing that down right now.
There's in that group you joined recently, the Candidates Club, there's a document for doing online presentation stuff, and it has links to different equipment you can look at.
I think I did look through that.
Yeah, one of those links is to that ring light I've got, and to some different webcams. Your webcam actually looks pretty good. I saw one candidate in something I was watching a while back who looked like he must have been dialing in from outer space.
He might have been.
So yeah, you want to make sure you have a good resolution camera when you're doing these things, and it looks like you're already on that, whether it's a USB one or your laptop just has a good camera in it already.
Yeah, no, this is a regular, not a laptop. This is a desktop.
Okay.
Well, let's put you on the spot, if I can. We're going to run a hypothetical. We are in a grocery checkout line, and I happen to either recognize you or you're wearing something to indicate that you're a candidate for the American Solidarity Party. And I say, American Solidarity Party? And in figuring you have maybe 30 to 40 seconds of my attention time, what do you say?
Yeah, Shane, what do you say?
And
Now, if I were in that position, I look at that person and I'd say, does the name Gdansk mean anything to you? That right away would get their attention. And then I said, I didn't think so. No, I wouldn't say that. Go ahead, Shane. What would you say? I'd follow your lead.
Yeah. I try to start with the whole life, and I explain to them that, you know, the American Solidarity Party is built on whole life principles, which is that idea that your life has value from the moment of conception until the moment you are placed in the grave. So that means that we fight for your rights to be born, and we don't stop there. We keep fighting for your rights for quality medical care and education as you're growing up. We want you to be able to get that education and hopefully not be in debt for the rest of your life. We do the idea of the ownership economy, which means that you have more opportunities to own the business you're doing. Everything we do is designed to give the person the best opportunity to thrive in life. You don't just have the right to be born, you have the right to thrive, and you shouldn't have to work 3 jobs just to starve to death a little more slowly.
Well done.
Well done. So James, I'll give you a similar hypothetical. It's almost identical, but we're in another grocery line, and another one because it's, you know, that's what we do.
What you do?
And
Forget the beer.
and I see that you are running against Gavin Newsom, who was the most despicable person in my opinion. What do you say to that person? Yeah. I'm curious to hear. You know, I don't want to lead you on, but I don't want to give you give you a leading question, but I want to hear how you handle you know, what is typically the American political narrative about, you know, this is, you know, I'm just outraged about everything. You know. Yeah.
Well, sir, I understand you're saying that Newsom is gruesome.
Yeah, I like that.
But we could probably have worse. And what we need to do is not settle with something not so hot. What we need to do is build something positive. And the American Solidarity Party it's really neither left nor right. It's really focused on the person, and the person needs a community, and the community is in support of persons. And we are, in fact, real serious about the sanctity of human life. We believe in it, and we believe that it extends throughout the whole of a person's life. And as far as we can tell, that's being lost sight of more and more. It's certainly lost sight of here in California.
Good. Yeah,
okay,
one of the things. Oh, sorry.
Please, no. I actually want you to comment to each other. I think that's helpful.
One of the things I picked up later in my campaign was that in order to be able to pivot when people ask questions, I learned to frame every question that was given to me through the lens of, how does this improve the quality of life for those around me?
Okay.
And once I started looking at it through that way, it became easier. Even if I wasn't familiar with a topic, I could sort of riff off of the idea of, does this improve the quality of life? Does this improve simply the ability to be alive?
Mhm.
Where does that idea lead us in the long run?
Okay.
I'm a little leery of not your point of departure, of course not, but the expression quality of life. In bioethics, that's a term that's used to justify all sorts of things. So I might instead say something like, I want everybody to have a chance to live and have an opportunity to flourish. And that term flourish goes all the way back to Aristotle. And in Aristotle, the whole idea is you really can't flourish outside of a community, but a community itself has to transfer its wealth in every form to the people within the community. Now, Aristotle had all kinds of problems. He didn't think that slaves were really part of the community. But you can lift all of that and put it into a Christian biblical framework.
Okay, so I think we're on solid ground on campaign and purpose. Let's talk about mechanics. Let's and I'll ask Shane to start with this. Tell me about time well spent as opposed to time you're beating your head against the wall in a campaign.
I want to hear this.
Well, my campaign was a little unusual. I was quarantined probably 3 or 4 times during the course of it. And I think if you can find that mentor, which is one of the things that Candidate Club tries to do, is that we can help you with the mechanics and stop some of that headbanging part. If you identify a couple of key people who can help you up front, some of those key people you want, you're going to have a treasurer who kind of understands the difference or is willing to spend the extra time to learn campaign finance versus regular accounting. That will save you some trouble. If you can get someone who has an idea of how social media works to help you with all that and ask you the questions, is there something in your social media you might need to scrub before you get famous? Or someone who can help you with that messaging. Those 2 people are key, in addition to if you have a third person who might know a little bit about writing. I lost so much time, and it's one of the things I do is write. But if I had someone who I could have given some talking points to and had them write the what do you want to call it? Write the copy for my website or write the copy that I'm sending off to the newspaper, I could have better spent my time making contacts or trying to get out into the community to shake hands, kiss babies, and all of that kind of stuff. Although I'd have probably got arrested last year trying to do that. But the idea is that as a candidate, your time is probably better spent with people rather than in the back doing all of the dirty work. If you can just get a couple of people to help you with the writing, the finance work, and some of the paperwork, then you can spend your time making those personal connections, and that is a much better use of your time.
James, same question.
Yeah, fortunately, my campaign manager is Desmond Silvera, and he has already run for governor once. He does so many things for such a long period for the party. He's about as well versed as you could possibly be. And the first thing he said is find a treasurer. And that's really important, evidently, because Desmond said he was his own treasurer last time, and that's one thing he didn't want to be, treasurer. So we succeeded. Ed Frankovic up in Visalia, the land of Brian Carroll, volunteered to be the treasurer. So in terms of having some key people, I'm really, I think, in a great position. A great position. I think, Shane, that your campaign would be very different from mine in that you're in a small region, relatively small region, and you can get out and meet people. I think if I got out and met as many people as I could meet, it would still be maybe 1/100,000th of the voting base.
Yeah, normally you would get a 2-year window to get all this done,
Yeah.
and you've got what, a couple months?
Well, see, here's it's so unpredictable. In theory, with this sort of special election, once it's decided that there is going to be a special election, in theory, it would be legal to have it the next week.
Ah,
Wow.
wow.
Yes. Now, no one thinks that that's going to happen, but it's acknowledged that yes, it could. It's up to the board to decide when to have it. I'm guessing, and it truly is a guess, that it wouldn't be until, say, August. But this is from reading the papers. And here's a chance to quote one of my favorite figures, Will Rogers. People, Shane, do you know Will Rogers? Or
I
know of
know
Will
him from
Rogers?
television. So my dad.
You might have heard him
Westerns.
referenced on television, but since he died in
This is not Roy Rogers. This is Will Rogers. Yes.
Will Rogers,
Not that other
yes,
Rogers.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm a little familiar with him too, but
All
yeah,
right.
I mixed them.
Will Rogers was a comic par excellence. And oftentimes when people would ask him about some critical issue, he'd say, well, all I know is what I've read in the papers. And right away he'd be understood to be saying, you can't believe what you read in the papers, and if all you know is what you've read in the papers, you don't know squat, right?
Mhm.
So here I am. All I know about this really is what I've read in the papers. I mean, they're saying maybe late summer. So no, there's not much time. And you're right, you had more time. But this is a time that I can get some traction maybe for the 2022 regular election.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a way an ideal way to test the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Just look at
if we're running it just a hair over, if we can, if I could just go with one more direction, if that's okay with both of you,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
truly I want to keep the misses of both of you on my side, because if I don't do that, I've lost you guys. So.
La reina de la casa. La reina de la casa.
Yes, I know. So I promise you this would be ending around now. But so let's just talk about how can I frame this? What your number one priority is in running, and what would be and Jim, you've kind of gone in that direction with the homelessness answer, but let's take it away from a single issue and more to core values. If you could talk to me about the core values that brings you to where you are right now.
Well, again, it's the person and the community. One of my great philosophical heroes is a fellow, Jacques Maritain, who actually helped to draft the United Nations Declaration on Universal Human Rights. And he wrote a great deal on the person in the community. And he has a little classic book called just that, person in the community. And he draws on the thought fundamentally of St. Thomas Aquinas and Aquinas' philosophical structure, not as content so much, but as structure is Aristotelian. And so what I want to do is say, look, everyone's life matters, and people matter. And why do people matter? Why do people matter? And if people matter, what do they need to flourish? They need an authentic community. And we are so far from that, perhaps not right away, but I'd say halfway into any discussion. I want to say, look, in California, what do we say to the elderly and the isolated? We say, we'll prescribe something so that you can take your life. That's what we say. And what do we say to the preborn? We say, you simply don't count. You don't count at all. And what's our education all about? Well, our education really, more and more, is all about, you got to get a job, and you got to get a job in the science tech sector. And that really is a fine thing to do, but it's something that's terribly narrowing if it doesn't take into account everything else needs to be taken into account. And you want an example of that? University of California, Berkeley, Lawrence Livermore experimental station. What do they experiment on? What do they work on? Nuclear weapons. So we have as the apex of our educational system, the crown jewel. We have the capacity to keep the world safe by using nuclear terrorism. And I want to have these issues come together, because they do come together. And one of the things that I notice in the discussions of homelessness is nobody in any depth talks about why there are so incredibly many deeply mentally disturbed people. Nobody in depth talks about why is it that so many people, whether they're mentally disturbed or not, are addicted to meth. Why are we so prone to addiction? That doesn't have to be. That doesn't have to be. And when we talk about what the prison system should be about, well, clearly it shouldn't be about housing, as it were, the mentally ill. And in large part, that's what it is currently about. But there certainly is a place for criminal justice, and it ought to be directed to the drug dealers. And it ought to be directed to the source of drug dealers in other countries, Mexico, for example. Trump, the bold, brave, brash bozo, cut a deal to release a high-up general in the Mexican military from the United States who was clearly guilty of trafficking with the cartel. We released him. Those people should be found and jailed for years and years and years.
And Shane, I'm going to give you the last word.
Well, something that I have found to be important, as much as the message that we want to get across, is the idea that we have a lot of work to do with, and I don't like this word, there's a lot of words I don't like, but disambiguation. Whenever I bring up the word distributism, everybody hears redistributism, and you have to go way off into left field to bring the conversation back. the words we use for our economics are often confused with socialism. I'm sure any of you who have had the conversation have had to explain how we are more or less capitalism and not closer to communism or socialism, even though we have a couple of the same ends. It's the way we want to get there that makes everything different. When we talk about the pro-life part of the whole life movement, there's a lot of disambiguation just with the idea of the words people use to talk about abortion. There's a lot more common ground than there is ground to fight over. We have to establish those facts as well. There's so much groundwork we have to lay to get the conversation to the point where we're a broader part of it. So one of the things I try to do is put out a lot of information on what makes distributism, like what I'll call it, is the conscience of capitalism, rather than trying to go off anywhere else. You know, we have the idea that more people should benefit and we shouldn't have to redistribute things. We should get that right the first time around. So yeah, just getting the words to mean the same thing for everyone is important. And that's a little groundwork I hope to be able to lay out so that whoever's running after me doesn't have to spend all that time just defining terms.
Okay.
You used the expression, didn't you, widespread ownership?
I may have. You might be thinking of Amar. Amar has used that phrase a lot more than I have, but yes, widespread ownership is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things when I say widespread ownership to somebody who doesn't already know what we're talking about, they immediately go to state-run or some communal ownership format. So again, I always lose half my time just defining terms. So I would really love to get the conversation to the point where everybody's operating out of the same glossary.
It's really revealing, though, how locked in we are in terms of the options in public discussion.
Yeah.
And that could be one of the reasons why Chesterton used paradox so often. He says
Yes.
the trouble with capitalism is that there are too few capitalists.
Mm-hmm.